Vasishta's Yoga, Swami Venkateshananda. Blessing by Swami Muktananda. The Yoga Vasishta is a unique work of Indian philosophy. It is highly respected for its practical mysticism. The study of this great scripture alone can surely help one to attain God consciousness. For aspirants of the highest beatitude, the Yoga Vasishta is like nectar. It is a storehouse of wisdom. Like the Amrita Anubhava of Sri Jnaneshwar, the path shown in this work is for those who are highly spiritually evolved, almost to the state of a siddha. It expounds to the highest doctrine with many stories and illustrations. Not only philosophers, but even the modern psychologists and scientists will certainly find in it something related to their own discoveries. Most of the scriptures were narrated by God to his devotees, but the Yoga Vasishta was narrated to God himself. It is the teaching of the sage Vasishta imparted to Lord Rama. It contains true understanding about the creation of the world. The philosophy of the Yoga Vasishta is very similar to that of Kashmir Shaivism. Its main teaching is that everything is consciousness, including the material world, and that the world is as you see it. This is absolutely true. The world is nothing but the play of consciousness. Abhinavagupta, the great 10th century scholar of Kashmir Shaivism, once said, Shiva, the independent and pure self that always vibrates in the mind, is the Parashakti that rises as joy in various sense experiences. Then the experience of this outer world appears as its self. I do not know where this world samsara has come from. This is also the unparalleled philosophy of the Yoga Vasishta. In translating this monumental work, Swami Venkateshananda has worked hard to make its philosophy comprehensible to ordinary people. In doing so, he has done a great service to the seekers of the truth. Swamiji is a pure person, full of knowledge, and therefore worthy of translating this work of supreme yoga. Let this book bring true knowledge to its readers. Swami Muktananda. Vasishta's Yoga. Foreword by Swami Ranganathananda. The book Vasishta's Yoga is a translation into English accompanied by brief expositions by Swami Venkateshananda of the Divine Life Society, Rishikesh, India, of the well-known Vedanta treatise in Sanskrit, the Yoga Vasishta. The Swami has arranged the verses of the book in such a way as to convert them into a rosary of daily thoughts throughout the year, on the lines of his two other books already published, namely the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. The Yoga Vasishta has been a favorite book of spiritual seekers in India these several centuries. Its special appeal lies in its thoroughly rational approach and in its presentation of Vedanta as a philosophy which dares, like the Bhagavad Gita, to bridge the gulf between the secular and the sacred, action and contemplation in human life, through a comprehensive and lofty spirituality. The reader will come across passages such as the verse entry, 2nd chapter 18th verse, highlighting the importance of a reason. The remark of even a child is to be accepted if it is in accordance with reason, but the remark of even Brahma himself, the creator of the world, is to be rejected like a piece of straw if it does not accord with reason. It is this philosophy of comprehensive spirituality, rational and practical, that man in the modern age needs to rescue himself from his stagnation of worldliness and put him on the high road of creative living and fulfillment. Swami Venkateshananda, who has been working untiringly for decades to spread the life-giving message of yoga and Vedanta in East and West, has done a great service to spiritual seekers far and wide by bringing out this translation of the Yoga Vasishta in the wake of his translation of the other two great books. The Chiltern Yoga Trust of Elgin, South Africa deserves the silent thanks of readers for publishing these three books of the Swami and helping to broadcast far and wide the life-giving, purifying and inspiring ideas of eternal India, Amad Bharat in her Vedanta. Swami Ranganathananda. Vasishta's Yoga. Introduction by Swami Venkateshananda. Scholars speculate about the author of this monumental scripture and such other academic matters. May God bless them with success. The Yoga Vasishta is the greatest help to the spiritual awakening and the direct experience of the truth. This is certain. If this is what you want, you are welcome to Yoga Vasishta. The text abounds in repetitions, which are, however, not repetitious. If you do not like or need repetition, then read just this one verse from 132. This world appearance is a confusion, even as the blueness of the sky is an optical illusion. I think it is better not to let the mind dwell on it, but to ignore it. This verse occurs several times in the scripture, and it seems to be the essence of the teaching. If that is not quite clear to you now, read the scripture. The numerous ways in which this truth is revealed will help open your mind. It is wise to read just one page a day. The teaching is revolutionary. The biased mind does not readily accept it. After the daily reading, meditate. Let the message soak through. An oft recurring expression in the scripture is kakataliya. A crow alights on the coconut palm tree, and that very moment a ripe coconut falls. The two unrelated events thus seem to be related in time and space, though there is no causal relationship. Such is life. Such is quote-unquote creation. But the mind, caught up in its own trap of logic, questions why, invents a why and a wherefore to satisfy itself, conveniently ignoring the inconvenient questions that still haunt an intelligent mind. Vasishta demands direct observation of the mind, its motion, its notions, its reasoning, the assumed cause and the projected result, and even the observed and the observation, and the realization of their indivisible unity as the infinite consciousness. That is the uniqueness of the scripture, which hence declares itself to be supreme. Except through the scripture, one cannot gain what is good now or at any time. Therefore, for perfect realization of the supreme truth, one should fervently investigate the scripture alone. Part 6 to 103. It is, however, the teaching that is supreme, not a book or a sage. Hence, Vasishta is bold enough to say, if, however, one thinks it is not authoritative because it is of human origin, one can resort to the study of any other scripture dealing with the self-knowledge and final liberation. Part 6 to 175. Whichever be the scripture taught by whomever and whichever be the path you choose, stop not till the psychological conditioning ceases entirely. Hence, Vasishta exhorts the seeker. One should study at least a small part of the scripture daily. The beauty in the scripture is that its student is not abandoned to his despair. If something is not clear in the first instance, a further study of the scripture makes it clear. Part 6 to 175. Vasishta's Yoga by Swami Venkatesananda, Benedictory Prayer. Yatha sarvani bhutani pratibhanti sthitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. Salutations to that reality in which all the elements and all the animate and inanimate beings shine, as if they have an independent existence, and in which they exist for a time, and into which they merge. Jnata jnanam tata jneyam drishta darshana drishyabhu karta hetu kriya yasmat tasmai jnaptyatmane namaha. Salutations to that consciousness which is the source of the apparently distinct triads, the threefold divisions of knower, knowledge, and the known, seer, sight, and the seen, doer, doing, and the deed. Spurhanti shikara yasmad anandasyambare vanau sarvesham jivanam tasmai brahmanandatmane namaha. Salutations to that bliss absolute, the ocean of bliss, which is the life of all beings, whose happiness and unfoldment is derived from the shower of spray from that ocean of bliss. The Vasishta's Yoga by Swami Venkateshananda is structured into 6 parts. The first 2 parts deals with the intent and the seriousness of the seeker. A discourse on dispassion is addressed in part 1. Dispassion is also called Vairagya in Sanskrit. In part 2, the behavior of the seeker or the attitude of the seeker is addressed through the story of Shuka. It's followed by 3 chapters on creation, existence, and dissolution. The part on creation is approached with 7 stories. The part on existence is approached with 4 stories. The dissolution is addressed with 9 stories. And by far the largest part is the part 6 on liberation or moksha. Once everything is understood as an appearance on the substratum of consciousness, the seeker is ready to understand liberation and hopefully to attain it. Liberation is called with various names in various cultures and traditions. Liberation is not only specific to the people from the Indian subcontinent or the people who can speak Sanskrit. Moksha is one word for it. It's called illumination in some other traditions, Satori, Moksha, Nirvana, Nibbana. You can call it with many names, but it is the absolute understanding of the true nature of self and abidance in it thereafter. So the part on liberation is addressed with 19 stories. That's how the Vasishta's Yoga is structured.